Hi there, it's Jackie Schomburg-Abstract. How are you? If you are looking for someone to make a huge mess and then attempt to clean it up, you are in the right spot. So I received a delightful package full of collage materials and a fun book and these wonderful tempera paint sticks from my friend Nancy from one of the Brave Art and Wellness workshops. Hi, Nancy. And I hadn't taken these for a spin yet, so I decided I would start with these. I think they're called quick sticks, and they're fun. My kids used them. They're like really buttery and fun to draw with, so I thought, why not? I got a giant piece of paper. This is about 22 by 30, I think. So it's perfect for making a giant anything and then cutting up. So I'll be cutting it up into smaller pieces later. For right now, as you can tell, I am just going for it. I don't know, I've just been too uptight lately, I think, and I decided I should just let it all out and do something weird. So here we are. This is just pretending to be a kindergartner and making the shapes that feel good and now dousing this whole thing with some fluorescent red paint, to brighten it up as if it wasn't bright already. I had no plan. I usually don't have a plan, but even this time I had less than that. However, it's looking very exciting already. And knowing that I know what it looks like now, I can tell you it goes under a very big transformation. This is a black grease pencil or a China marker. And it's nice because you can cover over anything with it and it doesn't smear or bleed or any of that. And you can draw over it too, or at least paint over it. Some Celadon. And I think it's so fun because most of the time the neon colors do not show up well on video and in pictures, but with this combo of the fluorescent red and the Celadon green, it still looks extraordinarily bright here, which it does in real life as well. And I have some very powerful lights in my art room, which, I mean, it's insane how bright this red looks when I'm working with it. I have to kind of blink a couple times very intentionally just to keep my eyes from glazing over. I'm always a sucker for circles and these orb shapes that kind of look like river rocks. I cut a giant piece of butcher paper just to get some of the extra paint off. And I wished I had done it with black, so I got a little bit of the black. I'm trying it with a hairdryer, not because I'm really worried about paint mixing colors. It's just there was so much going on in this already that I didn't want there to be. I figured something had to be a distinct color and not blending in with something else. These are my thinking fingers, trying to decide what to do next. And I was going to go for some Pyro Red. You saw me just put some on my palette to the right. I changed my mind, decided instead to try to get paint out of this old bottle that I made the bottle 2 years ago now, maybe 3. Gosh, I don't know. It could have been longer than that. So this kind of deep periwinkle color, I have a tiny bit left in the bottle and just kind of splattered it wherever it would splatter to change the values to get some dark colors in here, aside from just the black. I just used a catalyst wedge. Oh no, that was actually like a cake decorator, I think, just to carve some stripes in to that paint. I mean, this reminds me so much of like cosmic bowling. Any United States 90s kids, I feel like we had this cosmic bowling where they put on a black light and everything would be neon on the walls and the carpet was crazy. And this is kind of the vibe I'm getting right now. Brought out my color shaper with some thick white paint. So this is golden heavy body titanium white. And it is really nice and opaque if you put it on thick. I'm putting it on thickly and then gradually thinning it out. But so much more opaque than my regular titanium white from Nova Color. Just a very different kind of paint. My knitting needle. So here I can carve in and I'm getting all the shapes and excitement of that first layer in a much more tasteful, calm, I don't know. I guess I'm being judgy. I do like the bright underneath too, but it just really calms things down and it allows the neon colors to pop through and they're like just a little, not subtle, but subtle compared to how this piece looked a minute ago. And I really do like carving with this knitting needle. Now this is a Catalyst wedge variety. This one has little scoops pulled out of it so you can pull it through paint and it will subtract paint in a striped pattern. All the while I'm doing this, I'm really not sure how much white I'm going to add. It's kind of thinking through, do I really want more white? Should I leave some green? How much do I want to cover up? I think that the more of the fluorescent colors I cover up gives more impact to the fluorescent colors that do show through in those knitting needle lines that I made. So that's what ultimately led me to covering up the neon in the upper right corner. Now the lower right corner. That's right, I didn't Celadon. So I didn't want the whole thing to be white. So I went for this option. The Celadon looks very dark next to the white. It's much more of a darker color than I think it is. Using a palette knife to scrape that away to make some neon stripes. I forget how dark it is because to me it still feels like a light neutral, but it's much darker than it appears at first. And even though I'm still using white, I'm still looking to make some different marks. So I pulled some white paint away with my Catalyst wedge. I'm making it thicker in some areas than others. All right, that took quite a while to dry with my hairdryer. And then I still took a little bit of a break because the paint is very thick and I wanted to make sure it was dry before I started adding collage. I did hoard any interesting tissue paper that was in my kids' birthday presents. And because of that, I realized also that some tissue paper is not meant for collage. And this purple is one of them. You can see those little tears. There's little dots that show up white now. That's just me applying the gloss medium to it and it's just tearing right through. So I'm not sure what Blick does with their art tissue. Maybe they're just using wet strength tissue paper and they're calling it art tissue. I've never tried wet strength, so I'm not really sure if it's all the same or not. If anyone knows, let me know in the comments. wet strength versus Blick art tissue. Either way, the Blick art tissue is much more hardy and sturdy than this purple was. But I still like the color. And this is some fun striped tissue. So it's metallic silver stripes. And you see how that matches up so nicely with the almost the exact same size as the stripes I made by carving out some of the white paint with my Catalyst wedge. I thought that was so cool that the stripes were almost the exact same thickness. So because I know I'm going to cut this up, I am trying to add the collage into places that are going to touch at least every, let's say I cut it into 4 pieces. I want most of them to have some element of these collage pieces. So I'm strategically putting them on kind of, but I'm not trying to decide what the composition is going to be for the individual 4 pieces. I just want to make sure that most of the papers get into each rectangle. Hopefully that makes sense. And this tissue paper was from my tissue paper video that I made not too long ago. And if you are interested in learning how to make collage paper and collage tissue, and you want kind of either a refresher, or you're new at collage and you've never made your own paper and you want to come, I'm going to be leading a workshop on April 12th. I'm going to have one session in the morning Chicago time, 10:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m., and one session in the evening Chicago time, 7 o'clock p.m. to 9 o'clock p.m. Chicago time. So if you are interested, it's going to be on Zoom. You can log in from wherever you are in the whole world, and I'd love to see you there. And we're just going to go over some really easy but impactful ways to make collage paper. They're simple. You can make them more complicated if you'd like to. We're going to touch on the jelly plate a little bit, but it's not a jelly plate class. Okay, so if you want to bring your jelly plate and work with it while we're going through the class, that's awesome. It's very interactive. I'm anticipating everyone working on their own collage paper while they're Zooming with me. And we can you can also just watch and enjoy it. If you sign up and you end up not being able to make it, I actually am recording this one. So that's new. No one's going to be sharing confidential information in that, and probably won't be getting too vulnerable. So I'm going to be sharing that to anyone who registers. I'll send out the recording as soon as it's ready, definitely by the next day. But I'm very excited. So this will be my first Zoom workshop where I'm just going to be, focusing on a skill. But it's still all about being loose, having fun, and not thinking so much. Because some of my best collage paper is just the paper that I use underneath what I'm making for my art projects. So it's just that paper. You can see around the edges of this poster right now. You can see all the fluorescent red, like that border, right? As that gets bigger and other things get made on it, and there's a whole bunch of different random marks. And one piece of that I actually just took, and I'm going to frame it because I liked it so much. So a lot of people overthink collage paper. I'm sure that I'm guilty of that as well. But for the purposes of this class, we're going to try not to overthink anything. Just going to keep it simple. But you see how simple those black painted circles are. They're very simple. My kids could do that. No problem. And what does your eye look at when you look at this paper right now? Instantly, bam, right to those black circles. So you see the rest of it as you look around, but impactful collage paper does not have to be difficult. So don't worry about trying to make things too complicated, because probably a couple things are going to happen. One, you'll have spent so much time on making something that you won't want to cut it up, so it's not even for collage anymore. Or you'll futz and futz and futz, and it'll just be wasted because if you're going to cut it up anyway. So people aren't going to see all of the evolution from one side of the page to the other. Anyway, just my 2 cents. So if you have a similar philosophy and you're interested in learning how to get the most out of your collage paper, and just try making some. Again, it's very easy and very simple, and whatever tools you have lying around are probably fine as long as you have a bunch of scrap paper and a bunch of tissue paper if you'd like to try it on tissue. This, I'm going back to the quick sticks. So these are the tempera paint sticks. I'm using this black one. I wanted to have more black. And here I'm carving into that with my knitting needle. But as soon as I put those circles in, I regretted it. Now, I'm starting to get a little bit, not precious, maybe a little precious. I'm just starting to get hesitant. I don't know if you guys can feel this too, but I wasn't sure what to do, so I didn't do much of anything. And I would encourage you to do the opposite. When you're not sure what to do, make a giant, just do something bold. If you make a lot of little things change, you're not going to have a good place to react to anything because you didn't really change a whole lot, so it's hard to react. So it becomes easier if you take bigger swings and make bigger changes to each of the 4 rectangles. Here, again, I'm taking kind of a swing and then I'm kind of erasing it. This is some transparent red iron oxide. Trying to just warm up some of that beige from the packing envelope that I have there. I do like how this color, I don't know, it kind of accompanies that packaging khaki color. So that was nice, but it really didn't change anything compositionally. I did find that I had some alizarin crimson, and I remembered that alizarin crimson plus a teeny bit of phthalo blue and white makes a really pretty purple, like a violet or lavender. So I decided I would go with that. Because of the purple tissue paper, I wanted to add something that was going to be opaque here, because so much of the things I've added are transparent, right? Lots of tissue paper. And this purple was very opaque, really covered things up nicely. It was a much darker value to bring in. And I'm using, I don't know what this thing is called. It's like an edging tool for painters, like house painters. But if you push it down, it gives you a nice, crisp, flat edge. You can contrast the flat edge by the bumps of the packaging that is just khaki with a whole bunch of white styrofoam stuck to it, which then kept falling apart every time I put the paintbrush over them. And I'm just working on making different shapes. These are still very busy, and I'm very aware of that, so don't think I'm not. And I'll show you what I do for that in a little bit. One of my goals is for each of these 4 pieces to, again, it's a body of work. It's a very small 4 piece, not people, 4 piece body of work here, but it is very much like all 4 of them are very, very similar. They have the similar components, they have similar feel, they have similar colors, and I want that to continue through these while still being unique and different. So I think there's just this push and pull, and maybe I don't think it's just my art, but I think I'm just very aware of it with the similar but different. I feel like, for those of you who don't know, I'm very tall. So I'm 6'2", 6'2". And as a woman growing up, it's very unusual, and I've been this tall since I was about 14. So I'm used to being different. I'm very used to being different. And I always wanted to fit in better height-wise so I could share clothes with my friends and things like that. But I also really value doing things differently. And I'm not real trendy because I don't want to buy like new earrings that are going to be fashionable for 6 months and then they're dated and whatever. I just kind of buy like timeless pieces, probably also because I can't really get clothes that are super trendy all the time. So I just stick with the basics. And right now my basics are basically yoga pants and sweatshirts, but they're very cozy. So all that to say, I think that it's nice in life. I think this is like living the dream when you have differences and you get to kind of control when they come out. So maybe this is because I'm an Enneagram 9 also. A lot of self-analysis happening right now. I think that it could be because I'm a 9, that I'm okay with blending in on some level. I'm also a little bit introverted, so that could also be. But I'm also okay standing out. I just don't want to stand out because, gosh, I don't even know the reason. Let's say I'm standing out because I was just walking on the street and a car ran into a puddle and totally doused me head to toe in muddy water. That wouldn't be my favorite reason for standing out at a party. But if I was standing out at a party because I was the only one with a red dress on, everyone else was wearing like beige and blue, like light blues, things like that, I'd be fine with that. So I don't even know where I was going with that. I had some reason. Oh, so similar but different. I don't know if it's just the control part. It's got to be a lot of with the control. Although I really can't control my height. So it's nice when you can choose to be different. I have moments of that, and then I also just am different because I'm so tall and other things. So I think maybe that's why that comes up in my art, maybe just because of my life experience. I feel like everyone has things, though, where they feel the same as other people and different. Correct me if I'm wrong, or let me know if I'm right in the comments. But I do think differences can be really hard. I see my kids going through things. They're in grade school now, and you see that their friends are liking different things, and right, these like Stanley Cup things that my daughter is now saying like, "Oh, I want a Stanley. I want a Stanley." And it's interesting to know that it's already starting, right? They're 7 and 8, 6 and 8, and them wanting to fit in is already there. Although I'm so glad that they all have each other because they're all very tall. But I was the tallest one in my family, um, basically my whole life. And since I was probably 11, and I'm taller than my older brother by a few inches. So I'm pretty sure that my daughter will not be taller than her twin brother. So it's really cool that they're going to have each other. And we always forget, my husband and I forget that our kids are like super tall until we were at basketball today. And I was looking at my two sons playing this really cute, right? They're 6 and 8, playing this really cute game of basketball for the park district. And they're like not even heads and shoulders taller than their friends. But like I mean, they're just really, really tall. I'm like, oh right, we're tall. I forget. So it's nice to feel normal at home. I feel like that's like a thing for homebodies too. Like I love being at my house. I love it. Everything's comfortable, know where everything is. Maybe I just have social anxiety. I don't know. But it's so nice to be home and cozy. All right, this was a big swing, finally. I just wiped out those black ovals, and now I'm kind of scratching the color in, but it gives it a very different effect. So they're still there, but now it's just a bunch of thin lines, and it changed the look of the whole thing. And this white that I'm using is a very creamy white. So I did mix a little bit of yellow ochre in with the white. So it's not so stark, and it's a little bit creamy and a little bit richer. I finally washed all my paintbrushes that have been sitting in water that I've just dumped out and kind of swished the brushes around and then refilled a couple times over the past couple months. It's pretty gross. So I washed all my brushes yesterday, so I have so many brushes to choose from. And I don't often use those round brushes that I'm using right there. So it was fun to just play around with that. Admittedly, less of a big swing, but I wanted to mimic the stripes that were above that. There's not a lot of aiming to do with this big round brush. So that was kind of interesting. I found like nothing was precise with it, which is probably the point. And you can see as I'm pushing the white paint around with my paper towels, the black of the quick sticks, that tempera paint stick, is coming up. And when I went over that with the knitting needle, it gave me some lines on the other page. So I tried to do it with the other rectangle there. Gave me a little bit of an effect. Not much. And this had an unfortunate, or fortunate, dip of my paintbrush or my paper towel into the black paint on my palette. So I decided I'd use that to my advantage and just make more of a mess. It really is fun. It really is fun to not worry about what's what. And I got a little precious in there for a while, as I pointed out, where things were just a little bit too hesitant. And grabbing the paper towel roll really helps me obliterate that. If you're ever being too precious, grab something that has no precision whatsoever and use that as your tool. So I'm currently reaching for my this isn't even the fluid, this is high flow carbon black from Golden. I'm just looking for some drips, some more lines, but more organic lines. And then I thought, well, let's make it a party. All right, and at last, I've decided that it is time for me to just cut these up further. So stay tuned for part 2 when I cut these into about 5x7 size. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you want to know more about the collage class, Collage Paper 101, you can look in the description. I'll put a link there, and I'll also put a link up in the right-hand corner here. Bye, everybody.